Alright, students, welcome to our last rock type, metamorphic rocks. Metamorphic rocks come from the prefix meta, which means to change. So just like a little fuzzy caterpillar, one day will undergo metamorphosis and become a beautiful butterfly, so too our rocks will change. So, metamorphic rocks are just rocks that have been changed through heat, pressure, or both. You can have one or the other. Most times, though, it's both of them acting together to change the basic structure of a rock. Now, this can happen many times. Generally, you don't see metamorphic rocks anywhere near as much as you do the other rock types because it's very, very localized, the things that cause it to be metamorphic. Um, so things like mountain building, when they're forced up and squishes the rock, or also when you get hot magma. When magma comes up in, into cracks, it comes in contact or almost in contact with other rocks, and that heat from the hot magma just cooks them. So think of like taking batter and sticking it in your oven. When it bakes, that's the metamorphic rock. The thing is, all types of metamorphic rock can be turned into all types of rock can be turned into metamorphic rock, even other metamorphic rock. So metamorphic, if this were a card game, metamorphism always wins. Okay, because metamorphic rock can actually become more metamorphic rock. There's something called the degree of metamorphism. This is the extent to which the metamorphic rock has changed. So there are various levels of metamorphic rock. So going from not so not so much metamorphosized all the way up to it almost got cooked back to molten rock, pretty much. So let's start off with shale. Shale is a sedimentary rock and is formed generally on the bottom of a nice gentle sea as mud and various silt particles trickle out and form a rock. So let's say that our former seabed gets raised up and gets squished. It will then transform into slate. Slate is much harder, it's much denser, it actually can flake off into layers, um, and is actually quite jagged and sharp. I should know. When I was a kid, I fell off the side of the road into a pile of shale, and well, let's say I still have a few fragments still on my knee. So, yeah, that wasn't fun. Okay? So, shale goes into slate. Slate, if you squish it and heat it more, becomes the rock phyllite, like slate, but you can see it's getting squished into its component minerals. Phyllite also is rather bent or warped because of the squishing nature of it. And if you keep squishing and heating it more, it will become a schist. That's right, schist happens. Okay? And it happens under extreme heat. Because you take your phyllite, you keep under putting pressure on it and squishing it, and all sorts of other minerals will start popping out like these. Each of these individual red spots there is a garnet that pops out of the schist. So it's one of the geologist's favorite rock is schist. Okay, so you can actually see this in the Black Hills as well. If you see this blue layer there, that's all metamorphic rock. Basically, the Black Hills were what's buried under this large layer of sediment. They were forced up, and then the top part, which contains the igneous rock here, got worn away, exposing the now metamorphosized rock, because as they were forced up, they were subjected to great heat and great pressure, creating metamorphic rock. Okay, And you can see it there. This is actually phyllite taken from the metamorphic rock in the Black Hills. Okay. So, how do you tell metamorphic rock from other rock? Well, first off, it's hard. Basically, the hardest rock are metamorphic rock because it gets squished so hard that any imperfections were just squished out pretty much. There might also be cracks or fissures. If it wasn't squished hard enough to like melt it, um, you can actually see breaks from the stresses that the rock was under. Now, sometimes when you squish the rock enough, it will actually cause its minerals to come out and they will separate. So you can see banding or stripes or layers as its minerals literally start to separate out into bands. So if it's a striped rock and it's hard, it's probably a metamorphic rock. Another thing is, it might look like an original rock, but be slightly different. For example, quartzite. It's one of my favorite rocks. It was originally sandstone. And you all know sandstone, basically sand in rock, but then got squished together until the individual sand grains fused into basically what's one mass of quartz. So it has some of that kind of like sandy texture to it, except, well, it's really, really hard. Lastly, as I said before, you don't find very much metamorphic rock compared to the other two. It's generally in these small, narrow areas around like mountains or igneous rock. So just like the other rocks, there are different types of metamorphic rock, and you need to know two of them. First off, you have foliated. So it's when they get squished and the minerals come out in bands. So if you see a rock that looks like a zebra, you're either in Africa or it's a foliated rock. Okay? And there's non-foliated rock. Metamorphic rock that has no visible bands. Like here is my quartzite that I mentioned before. Yeah, it's got different textures to it, but it's not got bands to it because it doesn't have different minerals that got squished. Okay? So that's non-foliated metamorphic rock. Now, if you take all of this and you stick it together, you get the rock cycle. Oh. So, this is pretty much how all of our rocks go together. Normally, you start off with igneous rocks, okay? Now, if you take the igneous rocks, you weather it, you become sedimentary rocks. So, if you take sedimentary rocks and add heat and pressure, you get metamorphic rocks. If you weather metamorphic rocks, you'll get sedimentary rocks. And if you melt metamorphic rocks, you can then have it cool and become igneous rocks. So it always is changing, moving about, just really, really slowly. I mean, the rock cycle takes millions of years or even billions. So it moves slower than the slowest snail. That is, you know, crippled. Okay, so it moves slower than a crippled snail. Keep that in mind. Now, in your note packet, you do have a um, rock cycle sheet, and I'll be giving you colored pencils to color your sheet just to show the flow of the rock cycle. Okay, so these are the numbers that correspond to your sheet, the words that you should put on each block, and the colors that you should color them so that they go together. So come see me for a bag of pencils. I will also try and put a picture of this online with the rest of the notes as soon as I figure out how to do that. Okay? So that is Metamorphic Rocks and the Rock Cycle. You are done with rocks. So congratulations, guys. No more rocks for you.